What is going on, everybody? Today we have an amazing podcast. We have an amazing guest here today, and we're going to get down on something that is really important to a lot of people, which is the future of the real estate market, where it's going. Obviously, there's a lot of ups and downs, especially when it comes to interest rates with the volatility. People are wondering, is this market going to continue to rise? Is it going to have is it going to flatten? Is it going to drop? And so Nikki is going to share with us a little bit about her expertise in the real estate field and share with us her thoughts on where the market is going, but also shares how she got into the position where she is today. She's a rock star, and we'll talk a little bit about her story. But Sam, lead us into the conversation today, my friend.
Yeah. So, guys, on the origin story, right? We do a lot of things. We want to highlight amazing leaders. We want to highlight people who are doing, whether it's the retail side of real estate, whether it's the investment side of real estate. We might even get some people who are general entrepreneurs. If you were there with us last week, where we interviewed a man who's soon to be a billionaire, largely because of his entrepreneurial endeavors. Now, we want to find out how they got to be where they're at. Now, there's an amazing amount of relativity that comes with that. People, they can't really relate to a lot of success. If I go and buy a Lamborghini right now, it's inspiring, it's motivating, and people love it. It makes for great Instagram content, but a lot of people can't relate to it. What they can relate to is how people got started, because they can see an element of themselves in it. And that's what we want to do here on the Origin Story podcast. So, Nikki, you are someone who is doing phenomenal in the retail real estate space. You've got your own podcast as well. I believe it's called the Local Lakeland Show, right?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
You
Amazing.
did.
Okay. So we want to hear about your story, about how you got to where you're at. So lead us in.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy, honestly. I'm originally from New Jersey. So I moved to Lakeland, Florida 10 years ago, which is awful to say because that just makes me sound old. But I went to Florida Southern, which is a super small college here. And I got into school thinking I was going to be a doctor, right? Because, you go into school and you just think, well, what is going to make me the most money? And that's what I thought. And I realized very quickly that I was not good at chemistry, right? So I had to change majors. And I kind of just clung to business because I feel like you can do almost anything with a business degree, right? If you have a business background, you can turn it into anything. And then I also majored in communication. So I figured if I had both of those, eventually I'd figure it out. Well, when I graduated, I fell into real estate on accident. I tell everybody that. My broker at the time needed an assistant and I needed a job. And so we kind of got connected through LinkedIn and he was like, look, I can pay you $10 an hour. I just need you to do random things for me. And there's really no promise for your future, but like, will you just take this job? And I said, okay. And I remember my interview where it was like an office, quote unquote, that was being built. It was all just wood and no walls, no paint, no nothing. And I said to him, I will work for you for a little bit until I get a real job, but don't ever ask me to get licensed because I'm not a salesperson and I will never get into real estate. Fast forward a year from then, I went and got my real estate license. So it's kind of crazy, I think, how things happen and how things fall into place. I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. So even though I fell into real estate on accident, I say that, but I also say that I went and got licensed on purpose because I saw what it did for people in their everyday life, right? Like achieving the American dream. Or maybe it's helping a family that just lost a family member and they need to sell their house and it's one of the hardest things they've ever had to do. Or maybe they're going through a divorce. So you meet so many different people and you meet them at such a personal level that I kind of fell in love with that piece. And I realized that I wasn't a salesperson. I am a liaison between a person and a house. And so I just fell in love with it from the emotional perspective. So Yeah, that was 6 years ago, which is crazy. So I've been doing this for 6 years. But I really did get my start on accident. So
So I want to hit on that.
yeah.
Like you mentioned, you basically you became really good and you found a lot of maybe purpose in
Mhm.
helping people going through a lot of things, right? Because a lot of what people don't realize is, as investors, I like to tell Logan knows this. I think as investors, we're professional problem solvers. The bigger the problem that we solve usually correlates to the bigger, the profit that we make. And
Yep.
there's usually a lot of compatibility there. But a lot of people don't realize that on the retail side, you're solving problems in a big way. You're looking after people's situations and you're trying to find, what are the pitfalls, what are their limitations, and then when the tools that you have, the resources that you have, how can you get them basically going into the next chapter of their life in a better direction?
Yep.
So you were listening to a lot of people's origin stories.
Yep.
Amazing. I freaking love
Yeah.
it.
And honestly, like that's what I teach a lot of my new agents, because I am more so on the broker side of things now. So I really do try to look for new agents that are getting into the business, train them properly, and get them started. But the biggest issue that I see with a lot of these new agents is that they do get into it and they assume sales, right? Like they just want to make a deal, because a lot of them need to. A lot of them come in with no money saved up. And you really can't treat it that way. You have to treat it more on a relationship basis. And when you are talking to your clients, if you find what that pain point is, and you really just sit there and listen to them and show them how you're going to help fix a little bit of that pain, that's really when you make those relationships that turn into those big sales that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so for everybody out there who's listening, it's funny because when I tell people I'm in real estate, usually they're like, "Oh, are you an agent?" And like full transparency, like I'm not an agent. I've never sold anything in my life. Sam is not an agent as well. And so a lot of times people, they default to, what is a real estate agent? So if you don't mind kind of walking through the audience, like what is a real estate agent? Like what is the process and why is that position, why is that role so important for the people, especially now in this market that we have today?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, simply put, a real estate agent helps you buy a property or sell a property. But really, what I think gets missed is a lot of the background, right? So, we're negotiating contracts, we're dealing with other agents in the business who are technically our competition. So again, like not only am I learning how to form a relationship with my clients and keep them happy, but I also have to keep my competition happy, right? We're dealing with a lot of law. I mean, these contracts, I didn't write them myself. And there's so many different contracts and addendums and extensions and different things that have to be filled out during the transaction. That you really need to know your stuff about. You got to know what it says if you're going to relay it to your customers correctly. Because if you don't, they could be signing something that not necessarily signs their life away, but maybe signs away their $10,000 earnest money deposit that they have on the line.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, simply put, we're helping you buy and sell properties, but I think there's just a lot of background noise that totally gets missed.
What is the process to become a licensed agent in Florida? Because that's where you are. Like, what is that process like? Can I just go down to the courthouse and pay my $20 and have a license, or what is the process?
I wish. So you have to be 18 years or older. I think you have to have a high school diploma or a GED, and then you also have to have a social security number, and you have to be a resident in the state of Florida. So you go and you basically have to take a course. It's 45 hours, so it's your pre-sales licensing course. You could do it in person, you could do it online, and once you complete that course, you have to take a test. And I think on that test, you have to get a 75 or higher. And if you fail it, you have to wait 30 days before being able to take it again. And if you fail it a second time, you have to retake that entire course. So that part is usually not the hardest part. I mean, getting through the class, whether it's in person or online, it's just like a lot of information. But that test isn't too bad. But from there, you need to get fingerprints, right? Like you have to be approved by the state to make sure that you're a good person with your realtor.
Can you have any sort of criminal history at all?
So not necessarily. I don't know exactly what the rules are. I know you can't have like any DUIs, like anything really serious. But I think that if you do have something on your record, you have to report it, and then the state will contact you. And sometimes you can get it like approved or just looked over, I guess. But most of the time, you really have to have a clean record. And I honestly think the reason for that is because traditional real estate was, I'm going to pick my client up, I'm going to drive them around, and I'm going to show them properties. And so if that's the case, they want to make sure that I'm a good driver and I'm a good citizen and I'm doing all the things necessary. But yeah, so once you get that approved, from there, you have to take your state exam. And with real estate, it's tough because you're in school for such a short amount of time, right? Like I think I took my course in 2 weeks, and they teach you the basics of law and like what you need to know about being a realtor, but they don't teach you how to write a contract. They don't teach you how to show houses, and they really don't properly teach you what's going to be on the state exam. So luckily you have as many tries as possible to pass the state exam. May or may not have taken me like 6 tries after being in real estate for a full year. So if that tells you anything. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a process. It's not easy, I wouldn't say, and it costs money. So
let's talk about that. What does it cost as far as like from start to like just to getting your license? Let's talk about just that little chunk first.
So I think the course probably runs about $250, $300, depending on where you take it. And then your fingerprinting and all that stuff is probably around 100, 150. Every time you take the state exam, it's like $35. So times that by 7 or 6, however many times it took me.
Anticipate it happening a couple times, what you're saying.
Yeah. And so those are just your startup costs. So I mean, from right there, you're looking at probably, let's just say $500 to be prepared to really get licensed. And then from there, you have to sign up with the board of realtors, and you have to be a member of your local association. So like our dues, I think everything together to be a part of the board, to have access to MLS, to have an e-key, like all of that probably runs about $2,000 a year. And that's like an upfront cost. You got to pay for all of that because you need access to MLS day one. You need access to an e-key day one if you're going to be showing houses. So there's those.
Will you explain what that is?
Yes. An e-key is an electronic key on your phone. So it's an app on your phone that will open electronic lock boxes that are put on most houses. Some people still use like the traditional combination lockbox. But an electronic lockbox is definitely the way to go. And I would say at least more than half of realtors use those. So you need the e-key.
Okay. So we got about like a 2-week time frame. Like I say, I want to do this. Yeah. And I get the materials, and then I go to take the test. And let's say I pass it after 3 or 4 times. Yeah. I'm $2,500 all in. I got my license. Now I go out there, and now I'm making money just super easy, right?
No. This is where it gets interesting, right?
Let's talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So after you just spent, let's say $2,500 to just like be a active realtor, you got to pick your brokerage, and choose wisely, my friends, because every brokerage is going to offer you something different, and every brokerage is going to want you, right? There's going to be brokerages out there that are a cattle call that will just take on anybody and just basically sink or swim. That's what they're going to do to you. They're just going to put you out there, and you either succeed or you don't. There's going to be brokerages with higher splits, but they're going to offer you proper training maybe. And then there's going to be brokerages that will offer you a decent split, but then they'll say, hey, I need you to pay $2,000, $3,000, sometimes $4,000 for training. To where, in my experience, you don't really learn much in those trainings either. So it depends on what brokerage you choose, but it could cost you either from $0 to, I would say, up to $5,000 to just sign on with a brokerage.
Okay. And and this is great because as you talked about earlier, now you've transitioned from, doing on the retail side to actually now you bring young realtors in because you're a broker. Absolutely. So kind of explain a little bit how you do things. So obviously you've been in the game for a little bit of time. So why would someone benefit by working with you rather than going off and working with like a Keller Williams or Caldwell or all the big chains out there? Like what sort of value offer do you have for people out there?
So it's kind of a twofold, and I'll give you a little bit of history. I was with a family-owned brokerage for the last 6 years. sorry, that's my phone, that basically the model that we created there is very, very good for new agents, right? So it is a lot of online leads, purchased leads, and I would say it's like a lead generation in itself. Like we were just feeding leads to our agents. And the reason why that is good is because new agents get into the business and yeah, they have a sphere of influence, but that doesn't mean their sphere of influence is active, right? So they have cousins and aunts and uncles and friends and teachers and all these people, right? They could be the mayor of Lakeland, Florida, let's just say. But that doesn't mean all those people are going to be buying a house. So if you're being hand-fed leads that are ready to buy in the next 30, 60, 90 days, that's going to result in business right away. Where I am at now is a different brokerage, and it's more a traditional form of real estate, and it's Century 21. So from there, I think that brand awareness is my first value prop, right? Because when you think about real estate, yeah, I can buy all these online leads that are basically just going on random websites looking for houses, and then they're being connected to an agent. Yeah. They may work with that agent because that agent might be really good on the phone and they might form a connection. But then they also might go home and talk to their husband, their wife, their boyfriend, their family members, whatever. And they might say, hey, I'm actually ready to buy a house. Well, let me ask you this one question. When you wake up in the morning and you say, I have to go get a coffee, where are you going to get that coffee?
Well, you're probably going to Starbucks.
Exactly. So if I'm sitting at the dinner table with my family and I tell them I'm buying a house, they're going to say Keller Williams or Coldwell Banker or Century 21 because those are those big brand names. And so then that's where we get phone calls into our office just without having to pay for them because of our brand. So that's my value prop now. That's a little bit different. I mean, like I said, where I came from, I think it's an amazing model. I mean, obviously, like I was part of, creating it. So I think that it works. But with the way that our market is changing, I think a lot of people are going back to traditional real estate because that's where those real connections are being formed. And that's where you're going to get sales is from real connections.
So this is great because, you talked a little bit about a few things, and these are, Logan knows this because Logan he's done sales outside of just real estate investing. He's done sales in the fitness industry. He's done sales in a few other things, and he understands sales at a high level. And this is something that I'm learning very quickly in the entrepreneurial space is that if you don't have leads, you don't have a business when it comes to sales. This is the truth. And what we're basically talking about right now, there's a duality between having sales that come from paid marketing sources, like bandit signs, like billboards, these, like, here in California, we have this gigantic one called London Properties, and they have a billboard every intersection in my town. But then on the flip side of that, there is a higher quality conversion rate when it comes to leads that are from a referral basis, that are word of mouth, right? And that's that organic kind of approach. In your opinion, if you had to say one is better than the other, what would you say?
I mean, I could say good things about either one. I think that if you know how to convert an online lead or a paid lead, then that's great. There's nothing wrong with it. But what I've noticed with a lot of agents, new or seasoned, it doesn't matter, they get frustrated and they feel like they're spinning their wheels on these leads. And what happens is they end up overworking themselves, right? Because they're getting, let's say, like, we were getting I would get 12 calls in one day with 12 different leads. And I would spend 30 minutes on the phone with all of those leads. Well, now that's like a full Sunday that I just spent on the phone. But did I end up showing all of those clients' houses? Did I end up bringing them to contract? No. So there's that piece, but then there's also the piece that you're talking about where maybe I'll only get one lead on a Sunday, but that only took me 30 minutes. And then that more than likely is probably going to turn into a sale. So instead of talking to 12 people and just getting one sale, I can talk to just one person and get one sale. That would be the difference, I think. So, I mean, I think that would probably be better. But again, I go back to those those online leads and those bot leads, because it's not a bad source. And for new agents, not only is it business right away, but it's also learning opportunity. You know, that's how I built my business the last 6 years. That's how I learned as much as I did, because I was just constantly working. I was constantly spinning my wheels, quote unquote, but I learned every single time I talk to a new client. You know, you still learn every time you close a deal or contract. So I think that for new agents, it's a great model, but for more seasoned agents, the traditional model of real estate is definitely better.
So I have two questions. One is just for my own curiosity. These online leads that come in, are they generally buyers or are they generally people who want to sell their house?
So there's different lead sources. The biggest one is going to be Zillow. We were a part of Zillow Flex. For those of you that don't know what that is, basically Zillow partners with brokerages all over the state, and they just pick one brokerage for each area. And that's where all their leads go to. You don't pay for the leads unless you close them. You basically pay a referral fee. So it's a really good program. I mean, the referral fees are really high, but the idea of it is that 2 years down the road, that client is going to call you because they had such a good relationship with you, and you can close them without having to pay that referral fee. So that is definitely primarily buyers. I mean, sometimes you do get a buy and sell out of that. And then there's also other lead sources that are similar to where you pay a referral fee, but like HomeLight is a good one. That's mostly listings. You just don't get as many leads. So it really just depends on what lead source you get, but I would say it's primarily buyers most of the time.
Got it. So then, from my understanding, the listing is like the holy grail.
Yeah.
So what does somebody got to do as a new agent, or even as an agent who continues to build their pipeline? Like, how do you build your pipeline to have as many listings as you want, basically?
Yeah. So it's definitely all about staying top of mind. Obviously, we're in this world of social media. So if you are on every single social media platform, you're not going to see results right away. But long term, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, like me, who's been doing it for 6 years, everybody knows I'm a realtor. There's no question about it. Nikki the Realtor is my...
Look at your name.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody knows. So, you know, I get questions and calls and messages in my DM from people I went to high school with all the time that maybe they're not looking to buy or sell, but they're asking me questions about real estate. And more than likely, if they're having a conversation with somebody that's like, oh, I'm looking to buy or sell, they're more than likely saying, oh, you should follow Nikki the Realtor. So like I said, it might not turn into business right away, but 5, 6 years down the road, when every single person in town knows you're a realtor, you're more than likely going to get business. So I think that it's really important for people that are getting into the business to hit the ground running on that. And not just with social media, but I mean, getting out into your community. I'm a part of the chamber. I go to every single event that they have. Every grand opening that's in Lakeland, I'm attending. You know, I just stay heavily involved with my community, and I wear this shirt everywhere I go. So, you know, maybe we didn't have a conversation, but you probably noticed my shirt, and now you know I'm a realtor. So, like I said, it doesn't have to be in your face constantly all the time, but if you're staying top of mind, eventually people will just automatically relate you and real estate together. I think that's really important.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. And it's funny because for me, I'm a virtual investor. I don't refuse, but I refuse the idea of like doing a lot of deals here in my local community as an investor. And it's because I know myself, and I know that like I would probably, out of idle curiosity, force myself to go to every single property that I buy, right? This is how I operate. And I don't want to do that. Like personally, I want to just, remain hands off. And there's a duality. I understand that, on the retail side, you need to be involved. You need to be involved in a big way. And this is, I think, truly a luxury. When there's like the pros and cons of both sides, the investing side and the retail side. This is where, for a lot of people that are listening and are wondering about whether they should get their licenses or not, because I think most of our audience are investor minded, and a lot of them have this question. I want to ask you this question too, in a bit. But investors thinking about, should I get licensed? Right, yeah. They're investors first and foremost. They want to buy properties. They want to have Airbnbs. They want to do wholesaling, and they're wondering if they should get licensed. And this is a reality of that space: is that if you want to put that license to proper use, you have to get used to like putting yourself out there in a big, big way.
Right.
Whereas in the virtual space, I get to just come on Zooms. I get to just be on podcasts all day and just
Right.
chill like this. And this is my form of networking. There's an interesting, kind of duality there. But I did want to highlight this. I actually wanted to touch base with you because when I first came across your Instagram, guys, if you guys aren't following her, you absolutely need to. And when I saw your Instagram for the first time, I was like, oh my God, her social media presence is amazing. So it is very well done, very well executed. And my social media game sucks, like absolutely freaking sucks. So I want to talk about that because I believe that attention, the more eyeballs that you can get on you and your name, it's kind of the currency of the realm. And I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger. So how important is it for an investor or a realtor to have like a committed social media presence?
Yeah, so I don't know so much about the investor side. I guess it just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. But I could definitely talk about from a real estate perspective. It's really important, but it's also really important, I think, to hone in on an audience. Like I never really saw the importance of that before, right? Like I always was just like, oh, I want to get as many followers as possible. Well, what is the point? What is the point if I have 3,000 people from California following me? How many of those people are actually going to be buying in Lakeland, Florida? Yeah, I might get a few, right? Because there's a lot of people moving from California to Florida. But that's not what I'm looking for. So that's why I'm stressing the importance of going to a lot of these events and going to or being involved in the community, because what you want to do is you want to meet these people in person, and then you want them to come to your social media and you want them to follow you, right? Because they liked you as a person. And those are going to be the people that turn into business someday. So if you look at my social media, you will see how forward-facing like Lakeland it screams, right? Like it says Nikki the Realtor, and I post a lot about real estate. But if you look at my podcast, The Local Lakeland Show, it has nothing to do with real estate. It has nothing to do about me. I hardly ever talk or post myself on it. I am specifically spotlighting local businesses in our community, because what that does is it's bringing in local followers. They want to learn more about the businesses that are in the town that they live in and they love, and then they just happen to see me every single episode as the host, and now they are associating me as this local Lakeland expert because I know all these people that own these businesses and I'm featuring them on my podcast and I'm a realtor. Well, they're going to want to use me, or they're going to want to follow me. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going to want to work with me in the future. But like I said, that it was very specific to, okay, what kind of audience do I want following my social media? And it was very much so my community that I want to sell to. So I think that is definitely the most important thing when it comes to social media for realtors.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is freaking amazing. Like, it's the reason why we have you on this podcast is because your social media. And here's the cool thing that Sam and you both hit on is attention is monetizable, right? And so one thing that as we started to dig into your social media and started to see all the things you did, like your podcast, but you also have other things. You have, looks like you have a coaching program, which we'll talk about that a little bit. And then it looks like you have either affiliate or some sort of association with other businesses, which again, like you're able to basically take an eyeball, whether it be from your realtor business, whether it be from your podcast, and you're able to maneuver that into, basically you're able to funnel it into whatever you gives value to that person after that first contact point.
Exactly. Yeah. So at the end of the day, like I also realized that real estate can be boring. And so I noticed a lot of my friends were unfollowing me because they're like, I don't want to follow your business page. Like, can't you just make a personal page? And I'm not into the whole personal page anymore. Like I think I was when I was in college, but now I'm like, I don't need to be posting about this stuff. Like that's just that's my personal life. And so I kind of realized like, what can I do to keep my friends still engaged and show them that I'm not just a realtor, but I'm also a person too. And so I partner with businesses. But again, it still ties into everything because I partner with local businesses. So a lot of the collaborations that I have with local boutiques, like the swimwear that I wear, like I am constantly posting for the businesses that are here in Lakeland. Not just also because I want to get more followers from it, but really truly because I want to support these businesses in Lakeland. And a lot of them are my friends. Like I love them all to death and I want to see them succeed. So yeah, it all just kind of relates, but more so, like I said, I really wanted a chance to show my friends that I'm still a person and not just a realtor.
Yeah. I think what's cool, because so you have Sam who talks about like his business is literally all virtual. Your business is for the most part all local.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a hybrid, right? I actually do a lot of my business here locally where I'm at. We've also buy real estate outside of our town as well. And so basically for the audience out there, it's knowing your avatar, which you guys both talked about, and just knowing where they're at and then find a way to be in those areas. So for you, it's obviously going to the chamber, it's going to grand openings. It's like having your face be there. But you're also on podcast, which is actually virtual, right? And even though it's targeted towards a local audience, you could very easily take a business from a different area, and you're still coming into their living room and coming into their phone, wherever they're watching that at. And so that's to Sam's point, like he's on Zoom. That's just where his avatar is right now. And so ultimately, for the person who's listening, whether you're getting into real estate from a local perspective, like an agent, or you're doing on the wholesale side or the investor side, it's just understanding like where do you want to be, and then like put your face in front of those people and just develop a relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, like the number one thing that I've learned in the last 6 years is rip off and duplicate. There is no point in reinventing the wheel because it's going to take you way longer. There are people out there that are successful at what you're doing, and you don't have to copy exactly what they're doing, but follow them, pick out the things that you like and make it your own. And honestly, people are great. I reach out to so many people in the real estate industry all across the world all the time. And I'm like, hey, can we collab? Like, I just want to jump on a Zoom with you and pick your brain and learn how you do this, this, and that. Done. I'm not taking business from them. I just want to learn from them.
So this is amazing. This is phenomenal, right? And this is an element of why we have podcasts like The Origin Story. There's an element of highlighting people who are leaders, and you're a phenomenal leader, especially in your local area, right? It's not just that you're using your local area and you're monetizing on it for your own business, but you're also propping up other business owners. You're committed to giving back to your community, and there's such a strong, amazing power in that. But to your point, an element of, doing The Origin Story, I told Logan this when he first decided to go ahead and do this, is we want to be able to make friends with people. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to bring on amazing leaders like yourself. And this could be the start of a phenomenal friendship that may turn into business later. But at the end of the day, like there's still collaboration that can be done. And for me, there's a massive learning point, because I'm like, our mentor is this phenomenal individual named Pace Morby. And I think in December, so I'm young in the investment space. I'm pretty young in the investment space. I'm young in the sales entrepreneurial space. And I think it was maybe December that Pace Morby called me out, and he was just like, hey, I'm not going to follow you if you don't post on social media. Like, I love you, love what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't post on social media, I'm never going to follow you. And then he followed me 2 minutes later. And but I started doing it, and I suck at it, and I still suck at it. But here's the thing. I actually immediately noticed that my business started to turn. The revenue started to increase. My connection rate with other high-level entrepreneurs started to increase in a big way. So, but in the beginning, I had to have a little bit of a mindset shift because I was always kind of a private person. So when you're dealing with, could you speak to, let's just say a newer realtor or a newer investor, whoever it is, and they're maybe a bit camera shy, they're social media shy. What advice would you give to them when they're like, oh God, now I have to start like opening up my life? Like, do you have any advice for those folks?
Yeah, and I get that all the time. Most of my agents are terrified to post on social media, mostly the guys. But I honestly, what I do is I start them really small, right? So like, for example, I had a coaching session the other day, and the agent was like, I really want to send video text messages or video emails to my clients because I want to get listings from it. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you do video text messages? It's more personal, right? Like, just do it on your phone. Doesn't have to be perfect, whatever. Gave her a script and everything. And then she was like, I'm scared to get on camera. So I said, okay, let's take it back. Let's just do a voiceover. So we did this cute little video on Google Maps where it zooms in on the address, and all she had to do was record her voice talking. And she was fine to do it, but then she listened to it and she was like, oh my gosh, I hate it. And I said, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to record these and we're not going to listen to them. We're just going to send them.
Nice.
And she did. And she's actually like really excited about it. She's starting to get responses from it. So I think that like you can't expect it to be perfect, number one. And number two, you can't expect it overnight. So if you're terrified to do something, take it back like 3 notches and see where you can start smaller. And eventually you will get more comfortable and you will just not care anymore. And you will just post all the things on social media like I do. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. And it's so funny because like I do a lot of podcasts. Like I have this one. This is my baby with one of my best friends, Logan. This is amazing. And I do another one with another really good friend, Munif. That's on Twitch. That's like where we like bring gamers into the real estate space. And I don't watch any of our stuff. Like we can be 200. Logan, we're going to be 200 episodes in one day. And I promise I will never have seen our podcast. Like I will never have seen. I may see thumbnails, right? I may see thumbnails. I may see people reposting stories on Instagram. But that's about it. And it's funny because like, not to get too far off topic, but there's a lot of like phenomenal actors in the world who I know, like, I think Johnny Depp is like infamous for never watching his own films.
really?
I think so. Yeah. He's been asked, like, you can actually go on YouTube and like watch the video. It's like a compilation of him being asked, like, have you seen your movie? And he's just like promoting it, like on Jimmy Kimmel, on like the late night show.
Funny.
And then he's like, no.
No.
And it's his thing. So there's actors who they're committed to their craft. They're committed to doing it, but they never go back and watch it because it's done. It's done. They just leave it to the world. They leave it to the universe and they just go about it. And guess what? They show up for the next one and they show up for the next one. So for anyone who's a little bit timid about getting into being, let's just say, vulnerable on social media and exposed, the easiest thing you can do is just do it and then put it away and then go do it again next week and go do it again next week. And it will compound in a huge way. And I don't think anyone at your viewers, they don't care. They just want to see you. They want to see the content. They want to see your value. And that's about it.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that once you start hearing like once you get results, right? Like once you start hearing positive feedback, that also will boost your confidence. I mean, it's kind of like going to the gym. Like everybody that starts working out for the very first time is terrified to go to the gym, especially alone. Like everyone's looking at me. I feel weird. But then they just do it and they do it and they do it. And then 2 months later, they're looking in the mirror and they're like, wow, I look amazing. I don't even care who's looking at me at the gym anymore. And they continue to keep going. So I think it's the same with social media. Like I hear from my friends and family all the time, you're amazing. You're amazing on social media. And most of the time I'm like, really? Because I feel like I'm not doing enough. So, but when I hear that, it gives me the confidence to just keep going. So
that's the sign of somebody who's a high achiever. Is everyone else thinks that you're doing amazing? You're like, I could do a lot more. I'm a failure, right? So this is great. Do you have a strategy for your social media? Is it something that's more just organic, like you just feel it?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny too, because like around here, my friends will call me an influencer. The correct terminology is a micro influencer, small, very small following, micro.
For now.
Yeah, hopefully, right? No, but so I was on a podcast about being an influencer one time, and I was like, well, it's very similar to real estate. I fell into it on accident. I also accidentally became an influencer because I don't really have a strategy. I mean, now the only strategy I follow is that I try to make my feed look aesthetically pleasing, which is like the hardest thing in the world for me. I don't know why. I just like don't have an eye for it. Yeah. I'm starting to get a little bit better. So I just try to do that. But in terms of content or anything else, I just post whatever I feel like posting that day. And that's probably what keeps me engaged and interested. Yeah. You know, I mean, I could probably get so granular with it and figure out what my followers like the most and how to get the most followers. But that's not really what I'm passionate about. So I just post what I want to post that day. And it really does accidentally get activity. And the 6,000 followers that I have on my Instagram, like I really, truly did get on accident. Like not that it happened overnight, but like
Yeah.
I remember a time when I had 1,000 followers, and I don't know how I got to 6,000, but here we are. So
How long have you been active on social media and using it?
So literally 6 years. Well, actually not 6 years. I should probably say 5. So when I was getting into, or when I was in real estate for a full year, I was like super into fitness, like, which I still am. I work out every day, but I was like, I'm going to be a fitness model. Like, I'm going to have 2 million followers. I'm going to be famous. Like, this is going to be my life. Like, that's what I thought out of college. And I started posting. And at the time I was doing like bikini competitions. So I was like really into it. And I had a YouTube channel. Please, no one look it up because it's still on the internet.
Can you please tell us exactly what the name of that YouTube channel is?
I really probably need to take it down, but there's like this part of me that is just like, well, maybe someday I'll still be a fitness model.
Sam will find it.
Man.
I will.
Yeah.
I've already found it, Logan. Thank you very much.
Oh, great. So, but at the time, I had just gotten licensed, and my broker, was at the time also my mentor and kind of like second dad to me, like father figure kind of thing. I think he was looking over my shoulder one day, and he was like, "Are you wearing a sports bra?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, it's like a gym pic. Like, I'm trying to be a fitness model." And he was like, So let me ask you this. If you show a house to a male figure next week, and he goes home and he shows his wife that picture of you in your sports bra and says, "Oh, honey, look, this is our realtor." Do you think that couple is going to want to continue to work with you moving forward?
I think half of the couple may.
Yeah,
half the couple may.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I disagreed with him on some levels because I was wearing a sports bra, like it wasn't anything crazy. But it changed my mentality in the sense of, if this is where I want to go, right? If I want to be a realtor and I want to get licensed, and this is like what I think I want to do with my life, I need to throw everything into it and not worry about other things. Like, sure, I can still love fitness and I can do all of those things on the side, but that needs to be my personal life. And what I put out to the world needs to be what I want to do. Like, what do I want to show the world? Do I want to show the world that I'm a fitness model, or do I want to show them that I'm a successful realtor? And not that there's anything wrong with being a fitness model. I would still love to be a fitness model, but at the time I wanted to be a realtor. And so I realized, this is what I have to put out into the world then. I need to show the world that this is what I want to be, and that I'm determined to be this person, and I'm going to be this person. And so that's what I did. That day, changed my Instagram name. I deleted all of my fitness pictures, and I started posting about real estate, and I've never looked back. And I've gotten way more followers posting about this stuff, and I think it's truly because it's my passion. Whereas being a fitness model was more of like a dream. You know what I mean? That's the difference. This is my life. This is my everyday life. I'm truly a realtor. I dream about being a fitness model.
That's amazing. So what I picked up in there, and it ironically goes right along the lines of fitness, is the strategy is just, how do I continue to play the game long enough for me to get the traction I need to stay in the game? Because ultimately, like, if you would have stopped posting on social media 3 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Nope.
Right? Even if technically the right thing was to post, about real estate one post, and then post about your personal life the second post, and like whatever the strategy is, like there's so many different like little, I call them gimmick content things that they have, but ultimately what you said is really powerful. Like, what do you like doing, and what can you get passionate about, and what can like get you excited about it? And you do it because of it fills you up, and of course it's with the avatar in mind. But at the end of the day, like, if no one likes it, or no one comments on it, or no one sends you a message, like, it doesn't matter, because it's like what you like doing anyway.
Right.
I think there's so much value in that. Not just, again, in real estate. It's like it goes into fitness. It goes into everything.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because I think anybody could do it no matter what field you're in. I mean, you could be a power washer for a living, but like there are some people out there that get so much satisfaction out of like watching a dirty driveway go really like in a 30-second video. You know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like no matter what it is you're doing in your life, if it's something that you really love, just post about it and post the things that you love the most, because other people are going to love those things too.
People feed off energy. They love energy. Again, that's why, like, we found your energy. Like, you love, like, there's something about your energy. I was like, okay, let's go. Like, you got to be on here. Give us some of this energy, right? And I think that's really powerful. Everyone's out there listening. Again, whether it's real estate, whether it's being a power washer, whether it's an investor, like, show your energy. People will be attracted to your belief and your conviction in what you're doing.
Yep.
So, Nikki, let's transition a little bit. We talked about
Yeah.
your origin story. You've been a realtor for 6 years, and we're all in the real estate world, right? We're all affected by market conditions. So tell us kind of what you're seeing right now, specifically in your market in Florida, and then how you see that starting to spread out over like either certain pockets of the country, or how you see it affecting the whole country. Obviously, we know that every real estate market is individual. However, there is certain trends that generally can take over on a national scene.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the number one thing that people say right now about the real estate market is that it's crazy, right? It's absolutely nuts. But I think what a lot of people miss is that it's good. Houses are selling. I mean, interest rates did just recently go up, but interest rates were at an all-time low. Like, my parents bought their house at 15%. I bought my house at 2% interest rate. So, like, that's in itself absolutely insane. And when I say insane, I don't mean it negatively. That's amazing, because that allowed people in my generation to buy a house. Like, I don't think I could have afforded to buy a house at 15%, right? Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to afford my mortgage payment. So I think that it is crazy, but it's an amazing thing. And there are so many people all over the world that are buying houses that probably never would have really been able to in a traditional real estate market. The thing about it is, so I looked today actually at our local market because I was kind of curious to see what the stats were. And our average sales price compared to, in May 2022 March 2022 compared to last year, 2021, is $358,000. And last year it was $254,000, something like that. So it was about $100,000 difference. But when I looked at the inventory, it was probably about 10 off. So there was 174 houses that sold in last year, 2021, and there was like 182 or something like that sold this year. So, I mean, everyone keeps saying, oh, inventory is low. But inventory is, I mean, at least for last month, it was really the same. It's just that there's a lot more buyers on the market because of how low interest rates have been. Now, talking about the future, interest rates are obviously going up. So a lot of these buyers will start to dwindle, which to me is sad. I mean, it's going to be good for those people that are really trying to find a house and they can't because they have so much competition. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, the more people buying houses, the more people achieving the American dream, I think the better. But I definitely do see at some point, probably not necessarily in the next couple of months, but by the end of the year, where we will slow down a little bit. But what I tell people is this: I'm in the business, so I see it every single day, right? So I'm going to see the change. Yeah. Somebody that is not in the industry or that is not looking at real estate every single solitary day as their line of work, you really aren't going to notice it. That's what I think, in my opinion. You're still going to be saying that it's crazy in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And I'm going to be telling you it's actually slowed down a little bit more than you think. You know what I mean? Because I'm watching these stats. I'm working with clients. So I don't really foresee a huge change, in my opinion.
We just got an offer today because we just got a house under contract as a primary, and our rate was 6%. 6 on a primary. We just and just for reference, anybody out there who hasn't maybe bought a house for a while, like, we just refinanced our primary home last July, August, somewhere in there, at 2.75%.
Yeah, I got 2.3 when I refinanced in September.
So rates are like they've gone up really fast in a really short amount of time, which obviously affects the buying power primarily of first-time home buyers and people who would obviously need to get financing. So here's a good question for you, specifically for your market, Nikki. Mm-hmm. Is there lots of, so like when you're having a listing, is there multiple offers and are there cash offers? Kind of what is your, because that's what we're seeing in our market. It's hot market. What are you seeing in your market?
So that's the other thing that I did look at today. So last year, March 2021, I think it was 35 cash offers. And this year it was 58. So very big increase. I will say, so the biggest thing that I see with Florida, and it's probably because our market is so low, just generally speaking, compared to other states in the US.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing is that COVID created the work from home life. And so that has really continued. I have so many friends that were working for these big companies, started working from home. And then their company said, you know what, you work from home, great, stay working from home. You don't ever have to come back into the office again unless you want to. So those people picked up and they moved to other states that were cheaper, but they're still getting that same salary. So a lot of people that are living in California or New York that have these high markets where they're getting paid super high salaries are picking up and moving to lower markets like North Carolina or Florida, because they want to make all the money in the world and live in the same size house that they do in California, but pay a third of the price for it. So I think in our market specifically, that's where we're really seeing a lot of that. And I think that's why our numbers are so kind of like wonky. I don't know if that will change, but I mean, COVID's almost over, right? Like we don't have to wear masks on planes anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Will these companies start having people come back into the office? It's possible. We're people, we can sit behind a computer screen for the rest of our lives, but realistically speaking, we want human interaction. And I think that is really going to come back soon because people are going to realize how important it really, really is.
So just a little note, speaking of Californians who want to escape taxes and go to places that are a little bit cheaper, I may be in Florida soon. I mean, Florida is one place that I'm looking into.
Yeah.
So if I ever need to go, and I mean, like Lakeland seems pretty dope.
Yeah.
I hope
a cool area. Lakeland
amazing.
is just unique too. That's the other thing. Like our market's nuts here too because we're in between Tampa and Orlando. And when I moved here 10 years ago, I mean, I called my parents and I said, "Where did you send me to college?" Because it was like one bar, one restaurant, almost a no-name town. And now, I mean, there's traffic. Like I know what traffic is again. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. So it's growing. And a lot of people that don't want to live in Tampa and Orlando, like the big cities, but they want to work there, they move to this area and they commute. And we also have a lot of people that work in both Tampa and Orlando, right? And so this is like a perfect midway point. So I think Lakeland in itself is also just a crazy market on top of being a Florida market, just because we're in the middle of the state and it's just a perfect location. And I'm biased, but
Yeah.
So Logan, you know that I'm going to be going on tour this year, and Orlando is going to be one of our stops for our tour events. I think we may have to segue. Into Lakeland to kind of check it out.
I think so.
100%.
Okay. It's done. It's decided.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I looked at Lakeland. Looked like a beautiful place, but about 100,000 people, right?
Yeah, it honestly, it feels a lot smaller than it is, but it has 100,000 people, which is, I mean, well, I guess compared to some places, it's not huge, but you would think it's a lot smaller than 100,000 people, and it's not.
Yeah, I think going back to what you talked about with the markets and people moving around, it's actually interesting you said that. I haven't actually heard someone talk about at that standpoint of as we start to go back to whatever we consider normal going forward are these companies in these bigger areas, are they going to force their workers to go back into the office, and how's that going to change migration patterns? Or are these employees just going to say, you know what, I like living in this area, like I don't want to, because obviously it's a big shift. Like it's easier to move jobs than it is move homes. Yeah. However, we obviously know that people's incomes are also one of the biggest drivers for where they live as well. So it's going to be a great dichotomy of like, what is more important to people? Like, is it money or is it quality of life? And absolutely. I think COVID's actually, maybe we'll question that, which I think is good, especially from being in a fitness background. I believe quality of life is the most important thing over any sort of finances. However, people are very addicted to that paycheck. They're addicted to the dollar, and so they'll do crazy things for it. So I love that point. I actually haven't heard that or even thought about it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the folks watching, if you guys didn't notice, I was waiting until Logan would kind of showcase his fitness background a little bit, because you talked about fitness modeling. But this is really interesting. As we're coming up towards the top of the hour, Nikki, you got a lot of amazing things going on, right? You're killing it in the realtor retail space. You're highlighting other community leaders. You're highlighting businesses. You're very involved, and now you're showcasing and you're helping through your coaching people change their lives by becoming really high performers as realtors.
Yep.
What's the next step for you?
Well, so I'm in a space now where I'm very much so on the broker side, and I was like kind of in and out of production, selling houses, and then also trying to be a broker and help agents, and I was just going back and forth. But now the space that I'm in, I am truly, truly, truly just like on the broker side. And what I believe is that brokers get into the business because they want to retire, pretty much, right? Like they want to hire a bunch of agents that generate money so that they can just kind of step back and relax because they've been doing it for so long. But what I think a successful broker does is they get into being a broker and they hire agents and they still work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, on the weekends, on the evening or during the evenings, helping their agents be successful to really generate the maximum income. And so that's my goal for my role, because I am still super young, right? Like I'm not ready to retire anytime soon. So I want to be that broker that makes all of her agents successful, because I don't think the competition is high for that. So I want to be that broker in this area. And I mean, I'm working for Century 21 in a town next to Lakeland. We have 3 offices, and none of those offices are located in Lakeland. So I want to open an office in Lakeland by December. That is my goal. I haven't necessarily announced that yet, but that's definitely what I'm working towards. So yeah.
Guys, don't tell anyone until she officially announces it.
Yeah.
That's wow. And I want to highlight this, right? What you talked about. This goes back to our podcast last week with Carlos Alguero, and this phenomenal high performer. He's about to be a billionaire soon, a phenomenal mind to sit down with. And he talked about leaders remaining accountable and showing up to work. A lot of people, as an investor, my outside perception of becoming a broker is the scale play. It's you're scaling up, and a lot of times you can scale back and step away.
Yep.
But the reality is, like, yes, there's going to be success there. But if you want to maximize that success, it comes through accountability and not really changing your work hours. In fact, it's probably doubling down on your work ethic just in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's remaining accountable to your team. So I'm super stoked to hear that from you.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it too, like it's more challenging now, right? Like I am confident in myself. I know that I can go out and I can sell. I mean, I sold 81 houses last year. I could probably sell 100 this year if I wanted to.
Dang, girl.
I can hire a bunch of agents, but that doesn't mean that they're going to sell 81 houses a piece. Like, like they might not even sell 81 houses collectively. I don't know what they can do. I'm just meeting them for the first time and hiring them. So if anything, it's more difficult in the space that I'm in now, because I have to make sure that I'm giving them as much value as possible and I'm training them properly to be able to have those, high production years. So I'm definitely working a lot more than I was working before.
And for everybody out there listening, that's 7 houses a month. That's a lot of closing. That's a lot of sitting down at title companies writing signatures, which is amazing. Yeah. And so how can people, like, if let's say I want to work with you, right? So obviously you get the brokerage where someone can be a realtor. You have a coaching program. Do those things go hand in hand? Do I have to be a realtor in order to do your coaching program? How does that work?
No. So my coaching program is strictly meeting you where you're at. Cool. So, and really I developed it because that's what I do for all my current agents on a daily basis. And I get a lot of people in my DMs that are like, hey, how do I get into real estate? How do I be a realtor? Or how do I be successful? And I would type out these long messages and I would just be frantically texting them back. And not that I want to charge people because I feel like I'm spending time, but I just felt like that wasn't valuable enough, right? Like I probably gave them great information, but I'm like, I want to give you more. Like I want to get you on a Zoom call and I want to teach you everything that I know. And I can't even teach you that in an hour. So, so the point of the coaching program is pretty much like, if you want to get into real estate and you want more advice, book with me and we'll spend an hour on how you're going to do it. Or book with me weekly and I will help you every single week from start to whenever you decide to retire. I don't care. Or you could be a super seasoned agent that did 81 deals last year or 40 deals last year. And you're like, Nikki, I want to do 80 like you did. Cool. Jump on a call with me, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or just one time, and let's figure out how you're going to do it. So it's strictly just meeting you where you're at. So no, you don't have to be licensed. But I do try to keep it at real estate because I feel like that's like my specialty, unless maybe social media. But like I said, I got into that on accident. So I don't know how much value I have.
And so where can people reach out to you? Obviously, we have Instagram, right? Anywhere else that you want people to reach out to you?
Instagram is probably going to be the best source. Otherwise, you can shoot me an email at Nikki the Realtor, c21@gmail.com. But yeah, Instagram is usually the best way to communicate with me.
Awesome. All right, Nikki, freaking amazing. Like we so appreciate you hopping on here, and
Thank you guys for having me.
Even better than we thought. Like, amazing personality, amazing giver. Like it's clear that you are truly in this to serve and to give, and you clearly like what you do, right?
Yes.
And lots of golden nuggets. So if anybody wants to connect with you,
yes,
hit her up on Instagram, the socials. That's how we found her. That's how you can find her as well. And obviously she responds to her DMs. So get in them DMs.
I know. I try to respond to every single one. Sometimes there's too many, but I love to connect with people. So please reach out. I would love it.
Amazing. Awesome. All right, guys. That is it for episode, what is this, 5? Episode 5 of the Origin Story. Nikki, thank you so much for being here. Guys, we will see you next week.
Thank you.